Hakadosh, Boker Or, Daf Yomi, Masechet, Batra Daf, Kuf Ayin Aleph, Amud Aleph, 171A1. We're just going to start from 170B, where it said, right, as follows. If you remember, we says, Elmaleh Rav Nachman Ravuna, says Rav Nachman to Ravuna, and some people say it's Rav Yomi Bar Abba to Ravuna. Ishmiya le Rav habraita. If Rav would have heard this braita, yeah, he says the Tanya, as we learned in a braita, Edim mekarim et ashtar. The Edim are going to come and they're going to tear the first document. They're going to write another document from the time of the first one. Now, again, this was not like anybody in our Mishnah, because our Mishnah was, Rav Yehuda just said you get a new shtar, but it was with the new date. Rabbi Yosef says you're not going to write a new shtar. You don't touch the shtar. All you do is you just write a receipt. So this was like nobody in the Mishnah, right? Because yesterday we had, no, this, that. It was like nobody, not like A, not like B. This is a shita shlishit, a completely third shita. So Elmaleh comes and he says, right? So therefore, what? If he would have retracted. So he says, Elmaleh, he says, Shmialen. He did hear it, but he didn't retract. Now, why? Because we're going to see now. What does that mean? Many times, there's a few times that you could say, listen, maybe he never heard of it. So since he didn't hear of it, that's why he didn't pass it that way, or he didn't know about it. But many times we say, no, the opposite. He did know about it, but he purposely didn't do it. He purposely didn't hold of that. So now why? Says the Gemara, Bishlama, Kufayin Aleph on the top. Bishlama Beidina. He says, Betin are able to come and to change a shtar. Why? Mamona. Because they have the power of taking out money whenever they want. Edim shasu shlichutan, chozrim ve'osim shlichutan. He says, but 1 second, these edim, they already did the shlichut. They could do the shlichut again? For sure not. Which means they cannot come and start doing other things. Meaning like this, if it was done in a betin, that yes. But edim on their own, they don't have that power. And therefore he says, he didn't know about it. And he didn't retract. So ask the Gemara, below, edim don't have such a power. He says, "Ve'amar Rav Yudah Marav, edim kotvim afilu 10 shtarot al sadeh achat." The witnesses could come and even sign on 10 documents. So he says, no, Rav Yosef Amar, b'shtar matana. We're talking about a shtar matana, because shtar matana, since there's no achrayut, there's no guarantee, right? So then they could even write more. There's no problem. But Rabbi says, no, b'shtar shem bo achrayut. Only in a document that does not have achrayut. Meaning, if you want a shtar that has achrayut, edim do not have the power of doing that. So even if they wanted to come and write a new one with the old date, they don't have the power to do that. That's only a bet team could do such a thing, not any Joe Schmo. You understand? So these two edim, at the end of the day, I apologize. They could be whoever you want, but they don't have the power to do such a thing. Okay? Now says the Gemara, my braita. What was the braita exactly? Because we said if he would have heard of the braita, so then he would. What's the braita exactly? So my braita. So he says the Tanya was learned in the braita. Aresha yunoshimbo elev zuz. Remember right now he's got 1,000 zuz as a loan. Uparamen 500 zuz. He paid 500, so he paid half the loan, 500 zuz. Edim mekarin et ashtar. The edim are going to come and tear up the document. The kotvino shtar acher. They're going to write another one. He's manishon for the first one. Those are the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Okay, this is the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef comes and he says, right, which is very interesting, because now here, by the way, it says, now you understand that according to this is the Yachlif of Rabbi Yehuda. The Yachlif of Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, right, right, that's, well, Rashi already gave you this hint, by the way. When we said Yachlif, we just meant change the document. But look in Rashi. Rashi says, Yikara oto ashtar v'yichtov lo shtar acher lefi cheshbon anishar mizman rishon. That means that Rashi is already telling you what the Gemara is explaining in Shitat Rabbi Yehuda. The Shitat Rabbi Yehuda is that you do write a new document, right? But from the Zman Rishon. Okay? 1 minute. So now he comes and he says, Rabbi Yosef says, Shtar ze yemunach bimkomo. No, you leave the shtar wherever it is, right? V'yichtevu shovar. You're going to come, you're going to write a receipt. Umipnei shnei dvarim amru, right? And because of 2 things, they said Chachamim kotvim shovar. Achat, kedesh yachof lepar'o. Meaning, why is it that the Chachamim come and they say that you write a shovar? Why? Because you know why? 2 reasons. Number 1, kedesh yachof lepar'o. In order to force him to come and to pay up. Right? Why? Because basically what's going to happen is it's going to kilu put force on him that he has to pay up right away. Right? Why? Because what's going to happen? He only paid up 500. Now, technically speaking, he had to pay up the other 500 as well. But now, if it's going to be that you just have to write a new shtar, it's okay. So I'm going to take my time. No. This is going to be the new date. Sorry. The old date. The old date, but I'm changing it. I'm putting down 500, right? Which is what I still owe. So it doesn't put pressure on me to pay. You know why? Because even if he takes out a document, I'm only chayav lo 500. So therefore, I could take my time in paying. But what happens, be'emet, if I don't do that? What happens if he still has the document of 1,000 and I have a receipt of 500? It's going to force me to pay up on time. What do you mean on time? Quick. Why? Because I'm going to be afraid that if I lose this receipt of the 500, what's going to happen? He's going to collect 1,000. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do everything my possibility, pay up. So that's why he says it's better to do a shovar. Because you're forcing him to come and to actually pay. Okay? So he says, Ve'achat kedei sheigbe mizman rishon. Another one is because you want to collect from the first one, from the first time. So now the Gemara is going to ask, 1 second. But Rabbi Yehuda also said it was the first time. That's what the Gemara asks. But Rabbi Yehuda now means mizman rishon kaman. If you're going to learn that Rabbi Yehuda meant that you're going to write a new document from today, so then it makes sense what Rabbi Yosef is asking then Rabbi Yehuda, that you want to collect properties from the first time. But if you're going to tell me now that really be'emet, the document was predated, so then what's the problem then? You understand what's the problem? So he says, so says the Gemara, this is what Rabbi Yosef told Rabbi Yehuda. If you're with your kavanah that you want to put it in the Zman Rishon, paligna alach bechada. So then I'm only coming in and arguing on you on one halacha. That we don't actually do this, we actually just write a shovar and that's it. But if you're going to tell me that it's mizman sheni, so then I argue on you on two things. Meaning, miman of shach, I argue on you. The question is, do I argue on you on one or on two? That's the question. You understood? Do I argue on you on one halacha or on two halachot? At the beginning, he said, listen, if you're going to tell me that it's from the first time, right, the first zman rishon, so I only argue on you on one halacha. I prefer to write a shovar. Why? Because of what the rabbi said. We want to force you to come and to pay up. The second one is that if it's from the zman sheni, so then I argue on you two halachot. Then number one, it should be from zman rishon, and because remember, if I keep the original shtar, it's always from zman rishon. So therefore, if you're not going to write a new shtar and you're going to write down zman sheni, why? So that's what Rabbi Yosef says, arguing on him. So it comes out that that's what he's saying. It depends. Either I argue on you from 1 point or on 2 points. That's all it is. I argue on either one or two. Fine. Tanu Rabbanan, we learned on the Braita. Shtar shezmano katuv b'Shabbat. Yeah? Imagine right now you have a document, but you look at the document and you're saying, the shtar, the tarikh is on Shabbat. How does that work? Yeah, you start thinking, how does that work? What, they wrote the document on Shabbat? What's going on? Or Basra b'Tishri, Kippur. Yeah, you're looking at the document and it's Kippur. Document. Yeah. So he says, Shtar meucharhu bekasher. Says of Yehuda, for sure it was meuchar and it's kosher. Meaning it's not predated, it's post-dated. And since it's post-dated, it's going to be kosher. Those are the words of Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef, posel. He says, no, it's pasul. I apologize. This is not, we're going to explain the reason later on. Yeah, so he says, pasul. Amalo Rabbi Yehuda, says of Yehuda, Valo maaseh sheba lefanecha betzipori v'yichsharta. Says, what are you talking about? How do you say it's pasul? There was a story and it came to you in Tzipori and you said it was kosher. So Amalo, he says, Keshichsharti, bazeh ichsharti. When I went and I made the kosher, the shtar kosher, I only made this kosher in this case. Meaning like this. I'll tell you, this happens, by the way, many, many times. Many times there's an exception to the rule. Or based on circumstances, right, you're going to give a certain psak. So I remember, right, there was a case that I went and I told a woman a certain halacha. And all of a sudden, my wife is teaching Ilchot Nida to the women. And all of a sudden, the girl's like, what are you talking about? Right? I asked you, your husband said this. And my wife's thinking, are you sure? Yeah, 100%. So she asked me, she goes to me, listen, I'm teaching halachot. This is halakha. Well, I said, no, this was a certain case. And because of A, B, C, I had to be lenient. But obviously the person didn't realize. So they thought, no, there's no problem. So from then on, I was actually even much more careful that whenever I'm going to actually tell them halakha, I tell them, by the way, for you in this scenario, it's like this. Not in every case, it's like that. Why? Because if not, they come and they have a misconception. It's always like that. It's not true. So therefore, they're going to go, the rabbi said it. It's not true. You're a special case because of A, B, C, D, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Any other contracts that we did in between or anything can be posted.
He says, "V'harav Yehuda nami bazeh kamar." Says Rabbi Yehuda also said in this case the same thing. So Amar Rabbi Pedat says Rabbi Pedat, Hakol modim. Everybody agrees. Who's everybody? Whether Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yosef. Shimuzkaknu leonato shel shtar. That if we're going to say when is it going to be chal, v'nimtzet onato mechuvene b'Shabbat b'Srat Ishi, right? And it comes out that it's going to be on Shabbat or on Kippur. Sheshtar meucharu v'kasher, that it's going to be kosher, because everybody knows that it wasn't written on Shabbat or Kippur, and therefore they know that it's meuchar. So if they know it's meuchar, it's not going to come a takala. Meaning everyone knows that you're Shabbat and Kippur. So therefore, if right now you find it, for sure it was going to be meuchar, right? Kufayin Aleph Amud Bet 171b. Lo nechleku. So what is a machloket then? Ela b'shtar meuchar be'alma, on a regular shtar meuchar. Meaning it was not Kippur or Shabbat, meaning like this. When you come and you see today's date, you're not going to know it was Muchat. You're not going to know it was post-dated. You think it was done today. Only because the signature and everything is coming out that it's coming on Shabbat or Kippur that no, there's something here. This for sure is post-dated. It's not good. You understand? Only because of that. So you're not going to make a mistake. You know that it's post-dated. Right? You know that the guy was not Mechalel Shabbat or Mechalel Kippur. Right? So therefore here he says, in a regular case, that is a machloket. The Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says that he goes according to his reasonings. Remember, according to Shittat Rabbi Yehuda, you do not write a shovar. And therefore, right, since he's not going to write a shovar, so therefore he says, so there's never going to come a takala that you're going to come and you're going to say that shtar meuchar is going to be better. Rabbi Yosef letameh, but Rabbi Yosef goes according to his reasoning. Tamar kotvin shovar, that he says that you do write a shovar, and therefore he comes and he says v'nafak mineh chutba. So according to this, if you're going to come and make that the shtar meuchar is going to be kosher, it's going to be a kilkul coming out of it, right? Why? Because then he comes and he says over here. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask what's the kilkul exactly, right? But one second. But before getting there, he comes and he says since there is going to be a kilkul, so therefore he says that's why Rabbi Yosef comes and he says that it's going to be pasul. So that means one more time, each one l'shitato. Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says you never write a shovar. So if you never write a shovar, so therefore nothing bad will ever come out of this document, right? Because he says if he's going to be zakai, right, to actually come and to pay it up. So therefore he comes and he says you're not going to give back the shtar. So therefore he could come and he could cheat again and collect it a second time around, right? Especially if it's going to be a shtar meuchar. So he comes and he says, but according to Rabbi Yosef, you write a shovar, right? So therefore according to that, there is going to come up with something bad. So let's see what it says. It says the Gemara, Amar Rav Huna ber Rav Yeshua, says Rav Huna ber Yeshua, afilu lemandam, and even according to Rabbi Yosef that he says kotvin shovar, hanemilea palga. That's only going to be on chelek of the halva. Avala kule lo. But if you pay back the entire thing, there's no such thing as a shovar, but rather you get back the document. Meaning this entire concept of a receipt is only for partial payments. If you completely paid off the loan, you give back the shtar. There's no such thing as a shovar. The shovar is only if you gave a partial payment, so now continue going. Why? Because the other guy still has a shtar. But if you paid up the entire thing, you have to get your shtar back. There's no such thing as just writing a shovar. Right? So says the Gemara, that was the shita of Rav Huna ber Rav Yeshua. Says the Gemara, velohi, but it's not true. Afilu akule katvinan. Even in the entire document, you will still write, right, a shovar. Why? Like this story. Ki had Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Masik bezuzeh be Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Yosef had money by Rabbi Abba. He came in front of Rabbi Chanan and Rabbi Papi. Amarle, and he told him, Havli zuzeh, give me my money. Amarle, he says, Havli shtarai, ushko zuzcha. Give me the document, I'll give you your money. Amarle, he says, shtarach irkasli. I lost your shtar. So then he says, right, echtov lecha tavrat, so I'll write you a shovar. So Amarle, ha, Rav Ushmon, Rav Netevai, they both said, en kotvin shovar. You don't write a shovar. So Amar, man yahiv lan me'afre de Rav Shmuel raminan ba'inin. Who's going to come to take the afar of the kever of Rav and Shmuel, right? And we're going to put it because they're so precious. Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Reshakish Tamar Tavayu Kotvin Shuman says, listen, you're right. They're very precious people, and everything that you want in Rav and Shmuel, you have Rabbi Yochanan Reshakish, and Rabbi Yochanan Reshakish say that you do write a shovar. You also write a shovar. So therefore, it comes out it's a machloket. Do you write a shovar or not? And this is even on the entire thing, right? Because again, he said that I lost your document. So says the Gemara, umistabra de kotvin shovar. And it's even logical to say that you do write a shovar. He said that if you're going to tell me in kotvin shovar, avad shtaro shel yochal hala vechade. He says what? He's going to enjoy the money, and now kilu, there's nothing there. I come and I say I lost your shtar. Now what's going to happen? You still have to pay me, right? You didn't disagree that there was no loan. You agreed there was a loan, right? So one second. So what? So now you still have to pay me, but now you want your shtar. I'm going to tell you it's lost. So now what? So now what? I have to pay you, and then what? You just, that's it. So obviously you should write a shtar. So it is logical to come and to write a shtar.
In this case,
yeah. So he says, so matkifla Abaye comes and he asks, velamai kotvin shtar. What does it mean one kotvin shovar? Avad shovra shel zeh yochal hala vechade. He says, what does that mean now? What are you going to say? Obviously you're going to write a shovar. Why? He says, what? If it's going to get lost, you're not going to do it? Obviously you're going to do it. Amalei Rava says, yes. He says that it's proper for the loveh to lose out and not the malveh, meaning that the malveh, which is the lender, should always have the upper hand. Why? Eved loveh leish malveh. There's a pasuk that basically says that the loveh is like an eved to the malveh, meaning the fact that you borrowed money from somebody, it's like you're their eved. So now it doesn't mean you're physically their eved, but it's kilu, you owe them. So the fact that you owe them, ki'ilu, he always has the upper hand. And since he has the upper hand, so therefore in this case, listen, yeah, even if it's going to be that you're going to lose out, that's just the way that it is.
So if this is the kid.
We learned over there in the Mishnah. Shtarei chov mugdamim pesulim. Meucharim kesherim. So it says really like this. If you have a shtar which is going to be mugdam, pasul. If it's meuchar, it's kosher. So Amar Rav Amnuna says Rav Amnuna lo shanu ela shtarei alva'ah. This is only going to be that the rabbi said that it's going to be kosher on a shtar alva'ah. Aval shtarei mekach umemkar, but if it's going to be mekach umemkar, afilu meucharin nami psulin. It's also going to be pasul. My time, what's the reasoning? Zimnin de mizabel arba ar'a benisan. Maybe it's going to happen that he comes and he sells it in Nisan. And he writes it in Tishri. And then all of a sudden he's got money in between Nisan and Tishri. And then he's going to buy it back from him. Now what happens is what happened was that the Koneh Rishon still keeps the document. The Chimati Tishri, when it comes to Tishri, Mapikle, he takes it out. Right? And he tells him, Hada Zevanta Minach, you sold it again to me. Yeah, you understood. Again, whenever there's a churba coming out of it, which means whenever there's something bad that could come out of it, it's also always going to become pasul. Here, what happened is he sold him the field. It was a Nisan, right? But he only wrote down that he's selling it to him in Tishri. And what happens is in between, the guy got money. So he comes and he buys it back from him. Yeah, kol hakavod. Shavuot time, he comes, boom, he pays it back. So he buys back the field. All of a sudden comes Rosh Hashanah, and I go into the field again. You know, what are you doing in my field? I take out the shtar. You sold it to me. So what are you talking about? I sold it to you back then. No, sold it to me again. Here's the date. So he comes and he says, so, the same thing with Alva. He says, Zimnin the Yazif Benizan, it could be that Bemet, he borrowed the money in Nisan. He wrote the document in Tishri, right, which is again Nuchad. And then he's going to have money. And he pays him. Elmaleh, he tells him, give me my document. Elmaleh, he tells him, Ikasi, I lost it. Tavra, he's going to write a shovar. When he comes the time, Mapikle, He comes and he takes out the document. Elmaleh, he says, Hani, Hashta Udiyazif Minai. He says, 1 second, right? You have a shovar, but that was on a previous loan. I just lent you now money. Here it is. Not the exact same thing. So answers the Gemara, Kasavar, according to Rav Nuna, en kotvin shovar. You don't write a shovar. So it comes out that this will never actually happen, right? Because you will never be able to come and have this in a shtar chov, right? He says only if you gave him a shovar, you could say that. But according to Rav Nuna, he holds that according to Yehuda, you don't write a shovar, right? Which means that he's not going to come and pay back, right? If there's no shtar, basically. So for again, I have no problem then. Okay, in the shtar mechira, you do have that problem. So,
You shred it?
so it says the Gemara, if so, shtare alvanami. Also, it's going to have the exact same case. Why? Zimnin diyaziv ben Nisan. Maybe he's going to borrow the money in Nisan. Vekativ leshtara, and then he's going to write the shtar. He's going to have money in between. Uparalen, he's going to pay the chov. Ve'amarlen, he's going to tell him, Havli shtare, give me my shtar. Ve'amarlen, he comes and he says, Ikase, I lost it. Vekativ letabra, he's going to take it out. So he says, Kasavar kotvin shovar. Fine. Amale Rav Yemar Rav Kahana. Says Rav Yemar to Rav Kahana. Ve'amri and some people say Rav Yemar Medifti to Rav Kahana. Ve'ayina nowadays the katvina and shtareh meuchareh, right? That we do come and we write shtarot meucharim. The katvina tavra, we do write shovars. So therefore, so why do we do that then? Meaning, if be'emet it could come out problematic, so why do we do it then? So he says, Batra Daf Rabbi Abba le Safre, right? We do it only after the tikkun of Rabbi Abba to the Safrim. Whenever you're going to do it, you have to write it like this. You have to write it in the document. Meaning you're writing in the document, this shtar is not not written in the proper time. Rather, it's at another time. So but nowadays you don't do that. Meaning, if you're going to tell me that you write it in the document, so I know it's written in the document, but here you don't do that. So Bata Damalu Rav Safra le Safre. So this is after he came and Rav Safra told him to the Safre, when you're going to write the shovar, yaditu zimna the shtar. If you know the zman of the shtar, kitvu, write it. And if not, kitvu stama, just write it stam. The whole ema denafik, because whenever it's going to come out the shtar, the shovar is going to come and make it worse. So Amal Ravina Ravashi says Ravina to Ravashi, Vamal and some people said Ravina Ravashi to Rav Kahana. We don't do that. Meaning nowadays we don't do any of these things. So therefore, how do we write shtar meuchars? So Amaleh, he says Rabbanan takuna tikine. Right, the rabbis came and they instituted. Right, mad de avid, whatever they do, like the takana chachamim, he's doing it. Right, in order that man de lo avid, whoever doesn't do it, he says, listen, he's the one that's losing out. Meaning, at the end of the day, the rabbis came and they told you, don't write a shtar. If you come and you decide to write a shtar meuchar, it's going to be kosher. But you know what? If it comes out lost, you're the one that caused it to yourself. You were the one that made yourself lose the money.